Hello, my name's Dave Emory. We're going to continue with our discussion of the fact that, yes, the aliens are still not among us. In dealing with the perpetration of the E.T. myth, I think it's very important to understand not only that the E.T. concept is a myth, but that it could be used as a cover for a lot of different things. Indeed, I wonder to what extent the whole alien abduction okey-doke is in fact a cover for a very real program of experimentation on American citizens, perhaps genetic engineering, perhaps mind-controlled experimentation, perhaps a number of different things, only using the E.T. okey-doke as a cover. That's a possibility that I think needs to be very seriously considered. One of the best books about the E.T. myth, and in fact a book that goes a long way towards demonstrating that the myth of E.T.s has been deliberately perpetrated by elements of our own national security establishment, probably in conjunction with other countries' national security establishments. That book is a book called Revelations, subtitled Alien Contact and Human Deception. This book is the basis of a couple of half-hour segments available from Spitfire. I alluded to that earlier. Those segments were done in the early summer of 1997. This particular book, again, Revelations, subtitled Alien Contact and Human Deception, has been published in softcover by Ballantine Books, copyright 1991. The ISBN number is 0-345-37566-1. And in a section of Revelations, Dr. Vallee has a fairly witty and I think insightful analysis of some of the ETs are among us and are doing all sorts of nasty things nonsense. And I think one of the things that has to be seriously considered is the possibility that some of these things are actually going on, but that they're being done by humans here on Earth and not by aliens or ETs. In a section that Dr. Vallee, a section of the book Revelations, Alien Contact and Human Deception, that Vallee terms the horrible truth with deliberate irony, we read, speaking of Area 51, and among the many obvious problems would be how they dispose of their waste material, I never did find out who took care of the trash for our alien guests. But the stories about the Greys in Area 51 kept intensifying, drawing more and more rational people into a net of mystery, half-documented revelations, and hushed-up suggestions that became increasingly ominous. On December 29, 1987, John Lear issued a statement that reminded the reader, quote, Germany may have recovered a flying saucer as early as 1939. General James M. Doolittle went to Sweden in 1946 to inspect a flying saucer that crashed in Spitsbergen, unquote. And he went on, the horrible truth was known by only a few persons. They were indeed ugly little creatures, shaped like praying mantises, who were more advanced than us by perhaps 1 billion years. Of the original group that were the first to learn the horrible truth, several committed suicide, the most prominent of which was General James V. Forrestal, who jumped to his death from a 16th-story hospital window. President Truman quickly put a lid on the secret and turned the screws so tight that the general public still thinks that flying saucers are a joke. Lear pointed out that the first communication between these aliens and our government took place on April 30th, 1964, at Holloman Air Force Base in New Mexico, and he stated his main point. During the period of 1969 through 71, the U.S. government made a deal with these creatures called EBEs, extraterrestrial biological entities, by Dr. Detlev Bronk, B-R-O-N-K, the 6th president of Johns Hopkins University. The deal, unquote, was that in exchange for technology they would provide us, we agreed to ignore the abductions that were going on and suppress information on cattle mutilations. The EBEs assured Majestic 12 that the abductions were merely the ongoing monitoring of developing civilizations. This first part of John Lear's statement was replete with contradictions, of course. If the early crashes go back to World War II, contact with the aliens could have been established long before 1964. There is no evidence in our own technology that we have had access to any dramatic inventions which a civilization, quote, 1 billion years ahead of us, unquote, could surely have provided to us. And the aliens would have about as much need to request Washington's permission to do anything they please as a squadron of F-16s needs clearance from the tribal chiefs of New Guinea when they fly over. Ignoring all these contradictions, John Lear echoes New York artist Bud Hopkins' belief that the purpose of the abductions is to conduct genetic engineering experiments, including, quote, impregnation of human females and early termination of pregnancies to secure the crossbred infant, unquote. By the way, as I said before, consider the possibility that some of these things might be real, but that there are no aliens involved, but rather it's human beings conducting these experiments. Vallee points out the obvious contradictions in attributing these things to aliens. However, consider the possibility that this may be a cover for human activity. Continuing with Vallee's analysis. Until now, I have stayed away from the discussion of such crossbreeding because this hypothesis is so scientifically ludicrous that it does not even deserve to be refuted. It reveals a dramatic lack of information about the current state of the art in genetic engineering, not to mention developments that are forecast for the next 10 years, developments that are already the subject of massive financial investments. The idea that anyone equipped with the best in molecular biology would need to perform complicated and risky maneuvers above populated areas at night to abduct ovulating American females is just about the most outlandish suggestion I have heard in some 30 years of UFO research. Why take such ridiculous risks, especially when flying around with a technology that is so unreliable that over 50 crashes are said to have occurred in the United States alone? And they are supposed to be a billion years ahead of us. The only hypothesis more ludicrous than the genetic manipulation of human females is Lear's idea that the U.S. government would give the aliens permission to mutilate our cattle. And again quoting Lear, in order to sustain themselves, they use an enzyme or hormonal secretion obtained from the tissue they extract from humans and animals. Cows and humans are genetically similar. In the event of a national disaster, cow blood can be used by humans. That's Lear's analysis here, and Vallee goes on to comment, any civilization billions of years in advance of ours should be able to synthesize such a straightforward thing as an enzyme essential to its survival. More simply, they should be able to cure the alleged genetic disorder that has atrophied their digestive system. But even if we set aside such obvious considerations, the aliens could be provided with access to all the cattle they could ever wish to mutilate while staying on government-controlled land. And the slaughterhouses of Chicago would be delighted to make a cash deal with any organization willing to buy from them thousands of animal organs. In my opinion, there is a genuine unexplained cattle mutilation mystery, as investigative reporter Linda Howe continues to demonstrate with her field research. But the puzzling fact in that mystery is precisely that it is not a covert operation. On the contrary, the perpetrators always look for publicity, avoiding the easy prey of animals grazing in the wild, deliberately killing cows and horses owned by civilian farmers near urban areas and on small ranches where they are certain to arouse public confusion and anger. The mutilations are calculated to create terror. Over lunch with a friend who was a leading researcher in hematology, the study of blood, I cautiously brought up Lear's claim that cow blood could be used in an emergency human transfusion. He looked at me with a quizzical smile. He did not say to my face that it was ridiculous. Instead, he put it more gently. Jacques, if that's true, then I must go back to medical school, unquote. I pressed him. What would happen if you did such a transfusion, unquote? Instant immunological shock, he answered without hesitation. The patient would die, unquote, in minutes, unquote. So much for John Lear's statements in a field where the facts were available to anyone who would take the trouble to check them. A simple phone call to the nearest blood bank would have established the truth. What does that imply for the reliability of such so-called research in more complex matters? Furthermore, biological research on Earth is close to putting on the market various human blood substitutes. Two Japanese companies, Ajinomoto and Fujirebio, have created a joint venture to market a blood substitute based on human hemoglobin. Shouldn't we assume that any alien smart enough to fly over here from some faraway planet would know as much as we do in this respect? John Lear is not bothered by such considerations.